and I'm your host for the podcast, Different Thinking for Different Times. And I'm grateful you've joined me. And in the last episode, I talked about the question, where is God? And so I'm going to continue that for a while, because in my experience, when I nearly died, obviously I didn't, spoiler alert, on November 22nd, November 18th, 2002. So here's the thing. Where is God, right? Let's look at what we live on. We live on, I keep this next to me to remind me that we live on something that's smaller than this in relation to the size of the universe. According to physicists, in relation to the size of the universe, the Earth is like a grain of sand. Just imagine that. And of course, we think this is also real. And I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying it's not the way we think it is, especially if we believe our thinking. What I call the small-minded thinker, the acorn brain. That's my trademark. So I'm not trying to convince you of anything with these episodes. What I'm going to share with you is my experience. November 18th, I went in the hospital. 1 second, I was fine. I was doing a sales seminar for my clients. And the next second, I needed an ambulance. 5 days later, on November 18th, I flatlined. That's 2002. And I got a glimpse of what's next. In fact, that's what I think we should call death. What's next? That our family and friends who have gone on, they've gone on to what's next. And then people ask me, and I've heard the question many times, where is God? God has left me. God is not with me. Because they're struggling. And they're missing the gift in the challenge. That's life itself redirecting them. So I'll share my story quickly. How do I know it was redirecting me? So I owned the license for a national sales training program from 1998 until 2003. And in 2002, I was really thinking about, how about my own work? Writing books, doing training, all based on what I was learning. And this little brain was telling me, that little voice, that insidious voice, that George Ivanovich Gurdjieff called the machine, that Rainer Maria Rilke called the little hooligan, was telling me, no, who's going to read your stuff? And you can't have your own work in this license. And I wouldn't have. I agree with that side of the voice, that as long as I owned that license, I couldn't create my own work. Now, I could have written a book and submitted it to them, and then they would have done what's called a wraparound. It would have been their work around my ideas, and preferably my experience with the license and how it was helping my clients. And the fact was, at the time, it wasn't helping everyone because it contained so much role play that people were not being present and authentic. They didn't know sometimes what to say to a client because they were thinking of the role play. In fact, I got a few calls of people whispering, hey, Steve, what do you say when the client says this? And I remember asking one of the clients, where are you? Why are you whispering? I'm in the bathroom. I took a break on the sales call. They weren't present. If you really have good work and you're there to serve people, solve their problems, you want to help them, whether it's your solution or not, then you would know what to say because you're asking enough questions, curiosity. And so this person was stuck in the world, in the earth with, I better learn a technique or a tactic and how to talk to people, how to sell people, how to lead people. None of it is true if you know the divine, the God, the goddess, the Abraham, the Christ, the Krishna, the Buddha, the Brahma, the Muhammad is never absent. Whatever you call that voice, you could call it the quantum field that created this universe, this miracle we live in. And you have to prove that to yourself. And I'm not urging anyone to have a near-death experience to prove it like I did, because it just came to me. Life gave me a gift. And it took a 2x4 to whack me off the wrong track and put me on the right one. And I was grateful, waiting for the ambulance. Now, at the time, I wasn't sure how that all happened. It just happened. It came to me when people asked me, "Hey, Steve, how you feeling?" I said, "I don't know how my body's doing, and I'm grateful." I was amazed at how grateful I was feeling, and actually surrendering to what was to come with awe. I was wondering, well, I wonder what this is going to bring. And I never thought about dying. It didn't occur to me, only because I wasn't worried about it. In those moments, I was truly alive in that big challenge, the biggest gift of my life, which when people ask me, I recall that moment. I would relive it today if I had to, if I was that stuck in what I call a grievance or a complaint, because that's where my little acorn brain was taking me, to a grievance, wanting something else that hadn't yet arrived. It's like Muhammad said, what reaches you was never meant to miss you. And what misses you was never meant to reach you. So I wanted my own work on it. I was unwilling to give up that license. And plus, my brain was telling me, who would listen to you and your own work? And today I make my living sharing that work. So I sold all the clients to other licensees and just started on the journey of doing my work. And while I was in the hospital, by the way, because it was 5 days later that I flatlined, but I was in for 60 days straight and 40 out of the next 60 for a total of 100 days in the hospital and 6 months out of work, the most amazing miracles continued to occur. Besides surviving 2 major health challenges. One, acute necrotizing pancreatitis. That's when I felt like 1 second fine in training my clients, and the next second I felt like I had been knifed or shot in the abdomen right over here. And 5 days later had an anterior myocardial infarction. So I survived 2 major events, and today I have no symptoms. There's some things I had to adjust, but I have no symptoms. I'm a walking miracle. And I embrace life as it is today. And back in my body, this voice came back, continually speaking in the background, trying to change my mind about life itself, that I should carry a burden and have a complaint about things as they are, or people, or the supermarket line, or traffic, or the dog barking in my podcast many times. And I'll just say, well, Albie agrees. That's not what I would have done years ago. And that's what I'm urging you all to consider, because I don't want you to follow me or anyone blindly. I wrote about that in my book, You May Be Full of Shit If. Never follow anyone or anything blindly. In fact, Amazon wouldn't let me advertise that book. It's on Amazon. If you go to stevelentinauthor.com, it's one of the 12 books I have on Amazon. 2 weeks later, I wrote, You Might Be Full of Number 2. After All We Know Better, the woke edition. And in either of those books, I'm not making fun of anyone. What I'm challenging is all small-minded thinking. If you think your group is right and all others are wrong, and you're railing against people on social media, you're wasting your time, and you're not being godlike. You're not thinking like what created an infinite universe. Limitless possibilities. Miracles occur. You're limiting yourself. And every time you carry a grievance and a complaint, you're actually short-circuiting what's on its way to you, what could possibly manifest. And you're limiting it, and you're staying stuck in that limited possibility. But you got to prove that to yourself. Like I said, never follow me. I tell my clients, if I ever tell you I found the way, run away. So here we are living in a miracle, and we forget Because when we don't like certain people or certain situations, people bother us, situations bother us. We don't like how work is going. We don't like how our career is going. We don't like the fact that no one bought a book that we wrote. It's all good. It's moving us to consider different possibilities. And when you're judging someone that bothers you, you're missing what they're there to teach you. Whatever bothers you about others, you have it somewhere. That's the mirror principle. Google it, the mirror principle. Wayne Dyer used to say, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. And when we get squeezed, we get what we need to work on. That is what to consider when people bother you. And when situations are not matching your idea of how things should work out in your life, just think about it. What you're doing is resisting what life, God, is delivering to your door. And it might include a complete career change. Maybe it's a complete relationship change. Maybe it's a move. I don't know. But often we resist it. At least I was. And I was 50. So 1 second with 2 friends at the end of my bed when the ambulance brought me to the hospital. In fact, they too asked me, how are you doing? And I said, I don't know how my body's doing, and I'm grateful. And you could tell by the look in their face that gratitude was not a big part of their communication or their dialogue. They weren't used to it. Because the look in their face was, this guy needs a shrink and an ER doctor. I don't know how it occurred, probably because I was studying the power of gratitude. But to me, it was God showing up. I felt like a divine presence was there. Only as I reflect back now. But in that moment, I was fully anticipating, fully present with whatever was going to show up, and I was grateful. And that's what I'm encouraging people to investigate. Surrendering to what shows up. It's like being in a river and it floating upstream, trying to swim upstream instead of downstream, going with the flow and looking where it brings you and enjoy the journey along the way. That's what most of us aren't doing. We're concerned with outside-in validation. Let me explain that. Everything from the outside validates who we are. Cars, titles, jobs, prestige, fame, money, none of that will ever validate us because this brain is never happy. As soon as you get that thing, it wants something else. Or it says, that wasn't a big deal. A number of people have been interviewed after winning the World Series, the NBA basketball championship, or the Super Bowl, and they all say later on, it's not that much of a big deal now. I want something else. Many have difficulty surrendering to a life without the fame and the recognition and the acknowledgments. What I've learned is to live from the inside out. I wake up every day, and I've written about in my book, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. There's my name, Steve Lentini. You go to Steve Lentini, author.com, and you'll find all the books, 12 books. But How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon, I talk about what I do. I wake up every day, and I say, this is a fantastic day. And I wonder with awe. I feel it in my body. What will life bring me today? What will show up today? Because there's only now. There's only right now. I might be gone in the next second. Who knows? The day that I left that sales training and needed an ambulance and ended up in intensive care and flatlining 5 days later, that wasn't on my day timer. That wasn't on my schedule. It just showed up. And I'm grateful for that moment to this day. 2 friends at the end of my bed on the 5th day, 1 second, the next second I was one with everything and nothing. One with God, one with the infinite, one with the Buddha, the Brahma, the Abraham, the Christ, the Krishna, the Muhammad. It doesn't matter what you call it. Just think how small-minded it is to think that there's only one faith that God wants us all to follow. Just think about that, being the power that created an infinite universe that physicists cannot define to this day. So defining anything for sure is small-minded, especially without proof. And the fascinating thing is our brain loves confirmation bias, which means we gather evidence to prove whatever we believe is true, despite any evidence to the contrary. Why would there be so many different faiths? How about races? How about sexual orientation? How about ideas? How about political parties? Things to fight over. They're infinite. We can choose an infinite amount of things to make people wrong over. You see, that voice wanting to be right is the thing we have to work to overcome. And live from the inside out. Happiness in every moment. Or surrendered to every moment so that you don't have to define it as happiness, because the brain will say, are you really happy about that just showed up? Are you happy about this person who betrayed you? You see, we choose to be heard. You don't have to be. You could just say, oh, that person is showing me perhaps where I have betrayed people. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother you so much. These are all things for you to consider and prove to yourself. Some think God has stayed stuck in the Bible days, that we shouldn't advance. And maybe think that God has stopped talking to people. The infinite creator of the universe is talking to all of us every day. Some record it. There's some amazing writings that you could identify as otherworldly, from an otherworldly being, perhaps from God, like the holy books. I suspect it's been going on every day since creation began and human consciousness emerged. It's us that separate ourselves from the creator of an infinite universe when we are stuck in grievances, thinking we're right. Our religion is better than all. Our politics, our party is better than all the other parties, and we know better. Just think of how crazy that sounds. The crazier it sounds, it's even further removed from the creator of a universe, who would like us all to be magnanimous, not pusillanimous. Pusillanimous, go look it up. It's small-minded and tight. Small-minded and tight, living small-minded and tight. Anything that sounds small-minded is not, in my experience, from God, from what created a universe. And it doesn't care what you call it, because it's never absent. It's with us. It doesn't have a name. We need names. Joe Dispenza says it's the quantum field, where all matter comes from and returns to, which, by the way, physicists are proving that in the super colliders. Atomic particles appear and disappear. They come here and go somewhere else. That's what we're doing. We come here and then we go to what's next. We return back to where all the atoms and matter originate. But it could be just your religion is the only one. There's something else I'd like you to consider. In a universe, whenever we want to be right, we're making all others wrong around us. And that's something to just consider. Be open to a dialogue, maybe even a debate with others about their beliefs, or open to, oh, tell me more about that. How did you come to that? What else do you believe? Make no judgments. Just be in awe of all the different ideas, all the different opinions. You know what's said about opinions, I think, maybe. Perhaps you've heard it. Why are there so many creatures on an infinite universe, on the infinite earth? The earth is floating around the infinite. Why are there so many different things for us to embrace? It's to help us get over ourselves. That's why there's all the different languages, all the different races, all the different opinions, all the different people who believe one way or the other, and then they want everyone else to believe their way. And recently, we've seen many examples of that. In fact, in our own political system in this country, they're doing this. One side, we're right. No, we're right. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And we don't even know what the truth is because they're pointing fingers and not taking accountability or considering this. Hey, let's work together. Let's compromise. Let's have a dialogue. That's magnanimous, not pusillanimous. And it's not what I experienced. It was amazing. 2 friends at the end of my bed, 1 second in consciousness in my body, the next second, I was one with everything and nothing. Immense light, immense mercy, immense love. In fact, today, one of my goals is to love one person as much as I felt loved in what's next with God, with the infinite. I felt like a drop of water in the ocean or a wave in the ocean. The wave is in the ocean, but the wave is not the ocean. The ocean is in the wave as well. That's where we're headed, folks, in my opinion. That's up to you. And what I can tell you is what God wants us to do is live in this amazing miracle that we've been given. All the amazing landscapes, the amazing things we've achieved as human beings, all the places we've fallen down so that we could learn and grow. And I can tell you, next was my life review, and only the good I had done was mentioned. All the people I had helped, even given a sandwich to, or smiled at, family and friends who had passed on that I had helped. They were there loving me. How do you feel when you do good? Only the good I had done was mentioned. I didn't realize how many lives I had touched. And I wasn't even able to record all the events, by the way, while I was there. Because there was no past or future. There was only the now, which led me to the understanding. For me, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, as I've said a number of times to make that point. There was only the now. That's where God is. And I had been missing that. And I was 50. I had been missing that I could do whatever I set my mind to. I could do my own work. I didn't need that license for that national sales training program. And this brain was telling me, you could never do your own work. And thanks to that 2x4 that God gave me, he whacked me to need an ambulance and filled me with gratitude and surrender. I felt the presence of something divine. Little did I know I would flatline and be one with it 5 days later. And I came out after a few months because that little brain took over again and said, you can't get out of this license. You've got to do that work. Stay with it. You'll never write your own books. No one will believe you. No one will come pay for your programs. And finally, it was friends who challenged me. Steve, you got to give that license up, sell it, and do your own work. They knew. Imagine. And I listened. I surrendered. That was in April of 2003. Now 2003. I went in the hospital November 13th, 2002. I sold the license. In fact, earned more money for 2 years doing nothing, just coming from the people I sold it to. Shared revenue. And started my own work. I wrote my first book, Wake Up, Jump Into Your Life, in 2003, and I started a class in 2003 because I had to honor the non-compete from the other sales training program. And so I didn't go into sales training for 2 years. And again, then it was my own program. And I've had clients for 25 years, 21 years, 15 years, 11 years, 10 years. They're all still with me. And I've got to see what they've done with what I suggest. Because I don't should on anyone. I just get them to come to a new conclusion that what's another possibility. I ask everyone what seems to be happening, because what seems to be happening can be related to a complaint or a grievance we have. We can feel stuck. We can all feel that way. And I help them come to a new conclusion. In fact, make a new idea come true, or a declaration of what they really want. I had one young man who's still in my coaching 25 years later, who could not declare that he wanted to be a CEO. And when he did, 4 or 5 years later, he became a CEO, and he still is today, 14 years after that, and been with me in my work for 25 years. He's amazed himself. But he knows, with help, like I had to have help, that he's got to overcome that self-limiting thinking, that little brain inside our head that is probably what the ancients referred to as the devil. It was their own dialogue going on in their head with the voice that was limiting and or suggesting vengeance and revenge and anger and nasty things, judging others. That's the voice in our head. And we can learn to manage it, especially when we get over ourselves and model the behavior of the infinite that created this amazing miracle we live in. I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. When Einstein was asked about his idea of God, what formed his idea of God, he would answer in two ways. One, he would say, the superior reasoning power that created this unimaginable universe forms my idea of God. The other way he would answer is, go read The God of Spinoza. I read it after I got out of the hospital. Someone recommended it to me. And I was studying some of the great sages. In fact, I wrote the book Sage Advice a few years ago, a compilation of all the quotes and wisdom for living, that's the subtitle, from throughout the ages that hundreds of people have. Now, I only featured 62 in the first book. I have a list of another 100 for the second Sage Advice 2. It's fascinating what people have been advising for thousands of years: to surrender, go with the flow of life, embrace life, embrace life as it is, love life as it is, that God is in the now. There is no past and future. By the way, physicists will tell you the only time the past is present in a universe is in DNA from our ancestors. You got to prove this to yourself. Go read The God of Spinoza. Or just remember what Einstein said when you feel stuck. The superior reasoning power that formed this unimaginable universe. Maybe that could form your idea of God, and know that it's never absent. Whatever you call that power, for me, it's God. Could be the goddess, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Abraham, the Krishna, the Christ consciousness, the Muhammad. It could be anything you choose. It could be all of them blended in. If it sounds small-minded, it didn't come from the creator of an infinite universe. That's your own mind trying to run you, and you can train it. I talk about it in the book, How to Train Your Mind. I wake up every day and say, this is a magnificent day. I wonder what life will bring me. And then I also wrote, before that, I used these as a pair: no BS coaching, wake up from the BS you tell yourself. Wake up from the BS you tell yourself. Because all those complaints and grievances and judgments and people that bother you and situations that bug you or even hurt you, God is in them, urging you to make a shift in your life and to embrace life as it is and ask, hey, what's the gift in this? Or what is this miserable person here to teach me about myself? Where am I miserable like this person? Instead of complaining about your company, embrace the company. Look at its mission. See how you can help. Be excited and in awe of how you serve humanity in the company. And if not, if you're in a company that has no integrity and you're bothered by it, well, that's God urging you to change your job, change your life, change your thinking. If you can't embrace it where you're working, then find a place you can embrace, because your energy will go up. You'll be energized by the work. And that's something else I advise people. Do what energizes you every day if you can. And if you're doing things that don't energize you, embrace them, love them, be fully present. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about that. When you're doing the dishes, really do the dishes. When you're at work, really be at work. When you're at home, really be at home. When you're taking a walk, really take a walk. When you're with your dogs, really be with them. When you're with your spouse, really be with them. If you notice they're struggling, instead of getting angry, you could say, dear one, I see you're struggling. How can I help you? What would you need me to do? What would you like me to do? Instead, we want to be angry and listen to this brain. We want to react. I hyphenate reacting because it's something previously learned and we haven't risen above it. We haven't become godlike. Every time we react, maybe it's the devil we're listening to, which is in our own heads. Or not. Again, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I want you to make your life an experiment and start to manage that mind and live from a magnanimous mindset, an infinite mindset, knowing that you're aligned with the Creator. And do good. Do good. And surrender. After my life review, I was asked a question: stay or go? And my consciousness surrendered with thy will be done. Now, I didn't know that that was, in the Vedic tradition, the most powerful prayer you could say. I had never read that, but somehow my consciousness knew thy will be done. Stay there or come back. And I was right back in intensive care with the same two friends at the end of my bed. In fact, I couldn't speak for a while. And finally, I said to them, something happened. And they both said, oh, yeah, your alarms were going off. The nurses and doctors came rushing in saying, out, out, this is it, call his family. And sometime later, they were told, he's stable now. You can sit with him. I just want you to notice where you gather evidence to prove you're right about something, despite any evidence to the contrary, because that's called confirmation bias. Look it up. We all do it, and it's okay. Don't make yourself wrong. We're here to fall, as has been in many biblical stories. And it hasn't stopped. Humans fall. Hopefully we learn after we get up and try again. And sometimes we don't learn for 2 or 3 times. That's okay too. That's what we're here to do. And the good we do makes a difference. Put a good pebble out into a pond and watch it spread out. Watch those circles spread out. That's what you're doing every time you do good. In fact, I'm writing a new book called 24-Hour Good News, The Infinite Walks With Us. And I have a website, 24hourgoodnews.com, where I'm inviting people to share. When you catch people doing good, or maybe someone does good for you, share the stories. We all need more good stories. We're hooked on the negative. That's why those news stations are doing well, and newspapers, compared to if I had a newspaper that said 24-hour good news. Maybe I will someday, but until then, 24hourgoodnews.com is available. Share with me videos. Take a video of someone doing good. Or share your story when someone helped you. Let's expand that word of doing good, because it does matter. At least in my experience. Remember, that's all that was mentioned in my life review. The lives I had touched, the good I had done, including people I had smiled at. So if you want to reach me here, I'll show you the book again, one of the books. You can go to Steve Lentini. See it down there? Steve Lentini, author, add author. SteveLentiniAuthor.com. SteveLentiniAuthor.com. And if you want to email me, you could be a guest on the podcast if you like. Steve@SteveLentini.com. Steve@SteveLentini.com. All right, I'm grateful that you attended. Go share the word. Go do good. Encourage people to make their life an experiment. Maybe send them to listen to one of my podcasts. It doesn't matter. I live from the inside out. I'm happy doing this, and I'm happy for you. Go make a difference in someone's life. Thank you.